just a review of the G10 Canon. You'll see this on the second-hand market. Obviously it's an old camera. When people say old cameras, this is sort of 10 years old, I think, 12, something like that. Had it a long time. People don't tend to buy older cameras because they think that there's been a massive leap in technology. I'm going to purely concentrate on Canon, I think. What I can tell you is Canon were there way before anybody else and were producing amazing cameras 10 or 12 years ago. I'm videoing with the Samsung NX3000. This is a very good camera. It's got an APC size sensor. It's about the same size as this G10, but the sensor on this is extremely good. I think I bought it a couple of years ago. There has been massive leaps from certain camera manufacturers, but the G10 has not got an APC size sensor. It's got a smaller sensor. You can look that up with the technical specs. I don't know every detail. We've got 14.7 million squillion pixels on there, which is a lot. So how do I use this camera? Well, for a start, I never move it beyond 80 ISO, which is ridiculously low. It's the equivalent of having a landscape camera with Velvia in it, which was a 50 film. So we used to push it and pull it and do whatever we wanted with that. So see how close a Samsung can get. I've never really got this close. It's a very good lens on this Samsung. About there. So 80 ISO. I usually use it in manual mode. Very simple to set up. You've got exposure compensation on there. That seems to be moved by a 3-year-old I know, called my son. So we'll pull that back. You've got a hot shoe. So you can put any Canon flash on there. They keep their systems tight, so 2017 we are now, you can still use their flash guns on there. Has got an optical viewfinder, which is fine, works fine. You can change the diopter of there on the side, obviously play button. Very simple camera. Top plate is where it wins for me. If you look at the XT1, XT2, this sort of thing, they've gone this route where they're trying to use mechanical dials again, which is a good idea. Yeah, I've got auto ISO on there. Is that auto ISO? Yes, it is. Which has surprised me. I've never put it on auto ISO in my life because this camera is extremely noisy if you get it beyond 100, 200 ISO. And I like clean images out of this camera. I tried to match it up with the 5D Mark I. So I originally bought it as a sort of wedding camera I could use when people were a bit sort of, didn't like the long lens of the 5D Mark I, and I bought it just to keep on my hip so I could use it as a friendly camera. In the end, I did stop using it for a while and my wife used it for general use and she enjoyed it as well. But one of the biggest things about this camera is how far ahead of its time it was, and in my opinion build quality and the file that comes out of this camera, you're going to find it hard to beat even now. As long as you keep the ISO down, the file out of this camera is superb. The screen on the back is also very good. No memory card, so that's not a great sign. Let's have a look at that. On the side you've got all the usual AV out, and you've got digital out, and you can get a release for it, which I've never used, but you can do that. The battery life is extremely good. So there's the battery. You can research that battery pack, NB7L. I've only ever had one battery for it. I've never had a problem. So that it's things like that that show you when a camera's good. Taking this to a camera to a wedding, I've never even thought about buying a new battery for it. So therefore, it must be doing quite well. SD card goes in there. I've used iFi cards with it and the Pro one. So the files go straight onto the iFi card. And then you can put them on your smartphone. So you can say it's a wireless camera as well. So let's just look at the lens and just have a look at the front, see if Samsung can have a look for us. So the lens is amazing. I literally put these files next to a lot of other cameras, and it's a 2.8 lens when it's at its widest setting, and it's a 4.5 when you're zoomed in, and everything in between. So as a 2.8 lens, it's quite useful inside. Again, the thing that kills this camera is the ISO. So because it's such a small sensor, you do not want to really be creeping towards above, unless you like very noisy images and you're doing grainy black and white. That's fine, but to get a clean file out of this camera, don't go above 100. But that 2.8 gives you quite a bright lens. You'd have to pay quite a bit of money with Canon to get the 2.8 lens. So as a general photography camera, for somebody who just wants to go a bit further than the compact, it's been absolutely great. I've used it professionally. My wife's used it, you know, for general photography, whatever she needs to do. PowerShot G10, very good. The website's www.richardbarley.co.uk. That's where my wedding work is. Or the training website is richardbarleyphotography.com. It's richardbarleyphotography.com. If you go over and send a contact form, I'm going to start looking at supplying these retro cameras, as everybody's calling them. I call them cameras, but there's going to be a little bit of a market. People are going to start to see why Canon were there early. That's all I can say. Is a lot of the other camera manufacturers are trying to leap forward at the minute. Unfortunately, they're not really getting it, because at the end of the day, Canon had the technology a long time ago, and they're well known and people trust them. So good old Canon is still flying. But I can recommend the G10. The G11, I think there's a G12. I didn't buy them because this one was so good. If I can get hold of some, I'll try and see if I can do a review on them. Okay, postman's have come, I can hear the noise. Have a good day.